Oh, there we go. All right. Kristen, take it away.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the Reading League California event for tonight. We are so excited to have our guests with us. I want you to know before we start that when we survey the members and the people who are interested in the Reading League California, the number one thing they want to hear about are other folks that are doing the work. And so I'm happy and grateful to the team from Lancaster to share their experiences and their key learnings with us tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to our Vice President and Director of Events, Leslie Zaroya, to kick us off.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. So glad you could all be here today. And today is really special for me because these are my people that are presenting, and they're our babies. We've been working with them for 3 years, and so this is really exciting for us. So let us get started. So as always, the mission of the Reading League is to promote all things evidence-aligned science of reading, and really to promote an awareness and understanding and use of evidence-aligned literacy instruction all across our state. And we are growing. It's really exciting how many more members we have and all of the exciting work that's happening across our state and with legislation, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So other pieces of our vision is really to help our local, county, and state-based educators, all of you who take your time to come at 6:30 on a Wednesday night after a long day. Our goal is to provide you with anything, any resources, anything that you need to do this work. We also want to promote and support the use of reading science-aligned coursework, which you're going to see a bill coming up soon, which is going to address that, which we're excited about. We love to foster relationships and alliances with different organizations that are interested in doing this work. And we want to be inclusive. So tell a friend. That's our message, is every time you come to an event, and if you enjoy the event and you like the work at the Reading League, please tell a friend, because we do want to grow in our state. So before I turn it over to Lancaster, I want to just give a quick mention of some new legislation. Drop a yes or no in the chat if you have heard of AB 2222. I'm just curious what the vibe in the room is. Do you? Okay. Couple of no's, interesting. Okay, mostly yeses though. Okay, excellent. Well, I'm going to give you a link to a website that you can go to that you see right there on the screen. This is a website that talks about the legislation and the 3 kind of bucket areas that the legislation is proposing. It's in committee right now. We expect that they will be having a hearing on this. I'm hoping to be able to attend. I put in my name at LACO to be able to go. So I volunteered. And the 3 buckets are teacher prep programs, wanting to have teacher prep programs realign all of their coursework for new teachers to the science of reading. The second bucket is professional development, that by 2030, 90% of teachers in California would be trained in the science of reading. And then the third bucket is instructional materials. You know, we don't have an adoption coming until 2027. That is a very long time to wait, and this would fast track that. So if you are interested in supporting this bill, please click the link. Kristen even put the petition there. There's a petition of support you can sign. Thank you. And take a look, read closely what you're supporting, because I want to make sure that you're not just taking my word for it. Read through it. And if you are in support, please sign your name. And there's also a place on the website where you can tell your story. If you have a story as a parent, as a teacher, as a student, you are certainly welcome to share your story there, because we want every voice that wants to be heard around this legislation, because there are some groups that are actively opposing it as well. So we want to have our voices be heard in that debate. All right. So, oh, you already put the petition. There we go. So I put this picture to introduce the team, because through our grant work, so Lancaster School District has been working with Mara and I at LACO for 3 years in the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant Project. And they have been our pilot district in making the switch from balanced to structured literacy. And we are so proud of them. You guys, they have worked so incredibly hard. You know how hard this work is. And they're a huge urban district with lots of reasons not to do the work. And they have been doing it. And this past year in September, or when did we go? October? When was the Reading League conference? October? We all went to the Reading League conference in New York and we just had such a wonderful time together. And this is one of the pictures of all of us. So, so I thought that would be a fun one to share with you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to let Krista and the team take over and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and you can share your role and what you do there. So thank you so much for being here, friends.
Well, good evening. I'm gonna kick us in here. Let me share.
There you
All
go.
right, is everybody seeing my screen?
We can see it.
Excellent. Nothing's being blocked or anything like that, right?
Nope.
Okay, beautiful. Well, first of all, thank you for having us this evening. We are honored to be able to present our story to you guys this evening. We've told our story in a few different places, but it's always fun to come to the Reading League, California. That's like a heartbeat for us. So
Yeah.
working hard and we're honored to be here. I brought a team with me this evening. I'm Krista Thompson, the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment for the Lancaster School District, and it is my honor to have these group of people with me who are really the boots on the ground making this work happen. So tonight I have Tara Goins, who is my Coordinator of Curriculum and Instruction. She's my right hand, helping to make this happen. Andrea Williams, who is our district literacy coach, who is really driving the content and knowledge and expertise of our district. And she's a recent winner of the Beth Dalton Literacy Memorial Awards. So very proud of the work she is doing for us. And then we have two instructional coaches from two of our grant sites, Leah Fernquist and Jessica Kern, who are going to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing with the CLSD grant at their sites and some other things through the years. So here we go. So we want to share what we've done as a result of the grant work at 4 of our schools and how we have scaled that up to our full district we have 22 schools, but 14 of them are elementary schools. So we're really going to focus on our elementary sites through training, assessment, curriculum, and implementation support. This evening, we want to share with you our successes, our challenges, and for anyone who's kind of like, how do we start this work or how do we sustain this work? Give you our learnings and considerations for how to focus on literacy in a district-wide initiative, and then share with you some of our next steps because we are still in the very beginning stages of this journey, and it's going to be a while. So, all right. So a little bit about Lancaster School District. We're a very diverse district in northern LA County. We're above the mountains. We're not by the beach. We are a PK through 8th grade district, like I said, with 22 schools, 14 of them are elementary sites. We have just under 15,000 students, very diverse population, 3,900 Hispanic, 4,000 Black or African American, 4,000 white. We have a high population of multilingual learners, and we also serve the highest, one of the highest populations of foster and homeless students in LA County. So, and that's a large, large group of people. So very high low socioeconomic population as well. So we have some challenges coming into this. And just to kind of let you know our data coming in, as of 21-22, in this state, what I'll tell you about the data that you're about to see is that it's been pretty stagnant. Prior to COVID, coming out of COVID, it was pretty stagnant and nothing that we're super proud of, which is why we're on this journey. So in 21-22, all of our students, for all of our students, less than 25% of them were reading at grade level. It's pretty not good. And then you can see the different subgroups there, African American, English learner, all below 15% or even below 10% reading at grade level on CASP, which is 3rd grade and above in the 21-22 school year. That CASP data really tells you about our 3rd grade students and above, but we really didn't have much information that really drilled down to what our kinder, 1st, and 2nd grade students were doing. So I pulled a snapshot for you to give you an idea of where our 1st grade students were in that same school year using our iReady data. iReady is our benchmark data we give at beginning, middle, and end of year. And so just to kind of give you a glimpse at what we're looking at the end of 1st grade in that 21-22 school year, 63% of our students in 1st grade were 1 or more grade levels below at the end of 1st grade. And in just the phonics domain, more than half of them were below grade level as well. So I know that we have some foundational issues happening with reading. So we took a look as we came out of COVID and knowing what we're looking at with our data and our students and everything that the pandemic thrust upon us, and even coming into the pandemic with all of our challenges around reading. And we recognize that we have a lot of work to do. Our students are not reading by third grade, at the end of third grade. We knew that we needed a systematic, consistent, and evidence-based instructional routine for our teachers in the instruction, just the instructional component of itself. We needed a shared understanding of vocabulary around foundational reading instruction. We didn't have a common language. We didn't really have a consistent philosophy or pedagogy around reading. It was just follow the curriculum. And as I mentioned, we really didn't have any consistent assessments across the board that really drilled down and gave us a really clear picture of where our students were at in their foundational reading skills. And then, of course, as I'm sure the rest of the state of California knows and understands, we were lacking the materials, the resources, and the knowledge that we needed to provide structured literacy instruction. So after the pandemic, along comes some grants. We were the proud recipients. I don't know if proud is the right word, but we were the recipients of the ELSB grant. First, we got that first in 2020. And that grant focused on one of our sites that was the winner chicken dinner of the ELSB grant for being one of the lowest performing reading sites in the state of California. And the ELSB grant said these schools are going to be given this chunk of money to focus on literacy practices. And then at the same time, the CLSD grant also came along thanks to Leslie and her team at LACO. She adopted us, and we brought in 3 schools with the CLSD.
We picked you. We picked you for a variety of reasons, and one of them is this data. I mean,
Yes,
you needed it, you were ready for it, and that's why we picked you.
love it. Yes, and we are honored. We were very thankful, very thankful. So LACO came along with the CLSD grant. We had the ELSB grant coming in with a 4th school, and both grants did intensive work around foundational literacy, foundational reading, science of reading, structured literacy. And so there was root cause analysis, training that was happening at those sites. And we as a district said in that year that these 4 schools were getting the intensive work around structured literacy and the science of reading, we said, we can't wait for these grants to be done. We're going to take what we've learned from the ELSB grant school and the CLSD grant schools, and we're going to scale this up district wide. We're going for it. We have to. We owe it to our children because it is a matter of equity. And so with that, we took a lot of learning that you're going to hear about in just a minute and scaled our work up. And we decided to approach it from a 4-prong approach. We know we needed 4 components for this plan. We really came in with, we have to give training, effective training to our teachers, administrators, and staff supporting this work. We needed to take a collective look at assessment and make sure we're doing that correctly to give us the right information to feed what we do next. We really needed to examine our curriculum and how that was serving our teachers and our students. And then in all of this, how do we support implementation? And we are very blessed to have, as I'm sure everybody, we got a lot of money, and a lot of resources to support this, but we were blessed to have site instructional coaches using our PLC teams at the grade levels and the different sites. And then we also have an MTSS para program, which we'll speak about in just a little bit. So that kind of sets the stage for the work that we engaged with 3 years ago. And now I'm going to turn it over to my team to kind of tell you the details of what happened, where we're at, and where we're going. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Leah Fernquist.
Hi, so I'm going to talk about our year 1 and how we got started in this whole grant journey. We were approached by LACO and with our dismal stuff that you just saw, data, and we were ripe for the going. We needed it. We were ready to go. So my school in particular, but I think all 3 of the grant schools took a vote, and we decided that yes, as teachers, we wanted to do this. So year 1 was kind of just laying the groundwork, laying the foundation. We kind of came up with assessments that we were going to use for the beginning of the year, the end of the year. We have a parallel track going with our MTSS paras. All of our kindergarten through 2nd grade classrooms have an MTSS para, which is a huge thing. I mean, what a treat. And so they have been getting the same training that we have been getting as teachers. So that's been great. LACO has been super supportive from day one. They came in, did a lot of walkthroughs in classrooms. And then our instructional coaches, every school, as Krista mentioned, every school has an instructional coach, as well as we have a few district coaches. And so our instructional coaches at the grant schools also met with LACO monthly to get some training as well. The next slide, Krista. Oh, go ahead.
I think it's you, Stelia.
Okay. So we purchased new curriculum. We decided that we needed something at the bottom of the reading rope. That's where we started with year one. We started training with the bottom of the reading rope, foundational skills. We thought that Hegarty, SIPs were great curriculums to add to our core curriculum, which we'll talk about later. And then we also decided to purchase Dibbles, but that didn't really come into play until year two. We've also done a lot of work with family engagement, and we've had weekend events. We've brought parents on campus. We've had trainings for parents. And so that has all started from day one. Jessica?
Hi, sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes. My numbers got off. I'm the instructional coach over at Jack Northrop. It was my first year when we started this grant. So I was a brand new coach starting at that school site. So I was not only trying to learn how to be a coach, I was trying to learn how to have rapport with these brand new teachers that I was meeting for the first time and starting this grant with them. Year two was a huge cognitive load for all of us. We had just learned all about the science of reading. So we also had this bit of guilt where we thought, oh, wow, we've been doing this wrong for a whole long time. Super. And so we've got this load of guilt and we've now we have to do it all right. And Leah told you, okay, now we've got new curriculums and some new assessments. And oh yeah, we're still having trainings with our Getting Reading Right friends every month. So our brains are very, very full. So it was a little bit of a stressful year for us as we were doing a lot of training still, and we were continuing to get that work. One of the things we also did as coaches is work with Glean. We continued to have work with them, and we still do. We learned through them a lot about dyslexia and how the pathways in the brain are helping students to learn how to read and how they form those pathways. And we're helping teachers come to grasp with how they can best help their students in that process. Also, Glean gives us a one-on-one coaching session, which sometimes turns into therapy, not gonna lie, because as that cognitive load that the teachers have kind of gets passed on to us in the form of they're a little stressed out and sometimes resistant. And that will come later on when we talk about some of our challenges. But year two continued to be training, and a lot more training and implementation.
So more training. We kind of gave this angle of what kind of the grant sites were doing, and we were going to highlight that obviously a lot of training, but then at the district level, year two of the grant sites was year one across the district. So as the district coach, I was learning alongside, along with LACO, as well as being present at the ELSB meetings that they were doing, kind of, going to a million meetings, learning all kinds of things. It was super fun. I'm not going to lie. It was super crazy, but it was also super fun. And a little guilt, I'm not going to lie. But what we obviously could see was if after my 20 something years of education and what I thought I had was a lot of good information, realizing, wow, then there was probably teachers in my boat too. And that I wanted to, share and go, wow, teachers need some things. And we also wanted to give them good tools. So we started with obviously training around the structured literacy approach. I was able to obviously turn around and LACO was kind enough to hand training that they were giving the grant sites and say, yes, use this. And so I turned around and did the same training with our teachers. So without, repeating everything that they said, we did the same kind of thing, but turned around and gave it to our K2 general ed teachers, our K2 mild moderate special education teachers. Pretty much I said, everybody, K2, come. Now, grant sites did a little bit wider scope, but we had a lot more schools to do that with. The rest of our elementary sites, I believe that was 12 more sites, if I got that right. It was a lot more, and our research teachers and our MTSS paraeducators that were in all of those K2 classrooms, and then our other instructional coaches at those sites and our admin. So we just like, come on, come all. And, hey, if you happen to get the link and you want to come too, sure, come on. But we were wanting to create that common language that we learned was so important. Scarborough's rope, I joke, I'm going to make t-shirts. We're going to make Halloween costumes. Like, we're doing it. People are going to know what it is. But the shared why was really honestly an important thing. We don't have to feel shame about it. We just got to do something about it now. So we wanted to make sure that we had that done. And a big thing that came out of this was actually the need for small group instructional support. Like we had like at the beginning of this, I don't think we realized it now. It's like, you can't do this without that kind of support. And now I would definitely say that's like, they're hand in hand, like doing this kind of instruction. Besides assessment, that's been another big realization. So, and then go ahead. And I love the brain picture. You saw the brain picture there. Orthographic mapping, one of my favorite words, friends, look it up. I'm sure people in this room know about that word though. And then of course, we use this slide, but many of you, of course, Louisa Moats, I got to have dinner with her twice at the Reading League conference, friends. She came and sat next to me. I just have to say that out loud. It was amazing. And the science of reading, I tell people all the time, it's not a cult. We're not joining something. It's a body of information that's really important. You have to make this stuff fun because people are like, what? It's not just an ideology or a philosophy, it's in a political agenda, although it feels that way some days lately. It's definitely information that we need to be using to support, its evidence. And obviously, as I learned and heard someone say definitely at the last symposium about literacy or structured literacy, I felt like it was so good, was that we're always adding to this body of knowledge and we should always be learning, right? And so this emerging consensus from many related disciplines and thousands of studies about how we learn to read, how the brain reads, and we shouldn't be ignoring that. We should be paying close attention to that. And so this instruction we're learning about and how we instruct should be based on that. So I just think it's important that we, always ground ourselves in that. So these are some of our frameworks. I know that the people in this room likely have seen these, but obviously these are ones that we use. The simple view of reading, Scarborough's reading rope, that was this is our, again, I joke a lot in our district, but no joke, I'm not even kidding. I might make a t-shirt, friends. Because everyone knows I laugh and put it in every single presentation, even if it's not about literacy. I'm like, hey guys, let's throw that in. But because it's been such a support to how we talk about reading, the standards are an important part of how we teach. But the language arts standards are important, but this has been a really groundbreaking way of looking at it so that people know that bottom part of the rope is this finite set of skills that we have to teach to mastery. And that has been really important to my learning too, which is why it's not a choice of teaching phonics. And it's not only phonics either. There's a whole nother part of reading. We can't leave things out. And so both sides of this rope are important. And that's been a big part of the training, obviously. And I'll talk forever if you don't change the slide, Krista. So I will let you go ahead because we all know this stuff's fun for me. I joke a lot when we present about this stuff. I'll just say this as a side note. I have been having so much fun the more comfortable I've been getting. I was really nervous when I first started doing this stuff, but I do have a lot of passion around it, but I also feel like a fraud at times. I'm always like, oh my gosh, do I know enough? But it is because now I realize what I didn't know before. So I just have to keep on learning. This is a journey. And it's important for teachers to know that as they're learning this. Is like we just got to always keep learning. And we know that as educators, but sometimes it's uncomfortable. This is a couple more of our roadmaps. This was the first year, what it looked like. And we were presenting this to the district. So it doesn't have details about what the grant sites were doing in detail, but you can see the pathway in the white was some of the topics that we were doing in different meetings. We have 2-hour blocks on Tuesdays, as well as some of our PD days. Those professional development days we were spending with the non-grant sites. learning topics like structured literacy, but also we were training. We ended up as a district deciding to do some of our training alongside our assessment instruction and training, as well as teaching. We got Hegarty in place. And then a little bit further into the year, we began with SIPs and training our phonics curriculum. Yeah, I know you're going, whoa. Yeah, it felt that way too. And then we kept on training a little bit throughout the year. We had a little less time than the grant sites did, as far as, they had more like about once a month. We had about 6 trainings throughout the year. So you can see the topics like alphabetic principle and sound spelling correspondence, orthographic mapping, there it is again, and had lots of fun all throughout the year. I know some of them may not have felt like it was fun, but we tried to make it fun. And we did it all virtually because we had a lot of people in the room, but I feel like it worked. I mean, it's not the worst case scenario for sure. I wish we could do it all live, but it was doable for sure. And we made a literacy Google Classroom, so we shared it through that. We did lots of things that I think worked. And then this was our second year. We actually rolled third grade in sort of an appropriate way, I feel like, for third grade, where we showed them what's it gonna look like for third grade. It was a bit light just because of time, but we definitely gave them structured literacy, a bit of an overview, because we know when we just kind of throw curriculum at them and they don't have a basis for at least a bit of understanding why they're doing what they're doing, they're really finishing up some things, but we have so much intervention need in our district. We had to give them something. And so we did a little bit there. We've also had a lot of support for PD as far as what we've been doing after school, lots of support after school for SIPS training, dibbles, refreshers, things like that that we've offered. And so this is kind of what it looked like. And there's a lot of detail there, but lots and lots and lots of training going on in Lancaster, and lots of refreshers and support and support and support, which some others will talk about as far as what that looks like.
There was lots of training. It was lots of training. That roadmap may not seem like a lot to you. Maybe it does. It was a lot. It felt like a lot, because on top of the roadmap, we do have PLC time. And at my site, we were having it every single week, and we were in a cycle where we would do, I would do a PD with my teachers one week, and the next week we would look at data. And the next week I would do a PD with them. And the next week we would look at data. So on top of all of these PDs, we would have time during our school day in which I would be giving a mini PD to each grade level on what they needed immediately help with. Was it a Dibbles assessment that they needed more, comfort with, they needed to practice with, or was it one of our SIPS lessons we needed to roll through it and do it again? There was just so much constant reinforcement on all of the new curriculum that it was a real heavy load for us. And it was a lot. I can't say that enough because it was a lot. Our assessments, we have iReady, which we do 3 times a year. And it's a big, just kind of an overview. It doesn't dig down deep enough to what we needed. And so when we got the new assessments, we got Dibbles, and it's a great assessment. It digs down. It tells us what our kids know and what they don't know, but you have to learn how to give it, because the assessment doesn't give you information that is good and reliable if you don't know how to give it. And if you don't give the test well, if you don't take good data, you don't get good data. And so there was a lot of training around being able to give the assessment appropriately and accurately so that you could get good data. We also have the SIPS data so that we can accurately assess the students and we can place them in the right place in SIPS. And we had to teach them how to, again, give those assessments correctly, because if you don't assess them correctly and you stop in the wrong place, you're putting your kids in the wrong place. And then they're doing their SIPS lessons and they're too hard or they're too easy. And we had to do a lot of that support with our teachers. And you have to be able to look at that data and figure out the right place for your kids so that you're meeting their needs. And it's a lot. That's my favorite word right today, apparently.
Hey, there's a question in the chat. Let's
Okay.
Let's do it. Do you do all parts of Dibbles, including the irregular word lists, second grade in particular?
So when we do our, well, also at the grant schools, I also have to say grant schools are K-5 that we do all of our work K-5. I know the rest of our district is doing K-2 or then up, we rolled up to 3rd grade, but the grant schools are doing K-5. So we do it all. So up to 3rd grade, we do dibbles, and 4th and 5th just do the ORF for dibbles. But all the way up through 3rd grade, like they're gated assessments. So 3rd grade will start with the ORF. If they pass the ORF, then the student would stop there. If they don't pass the ORF, then the gate opens up and they would have to do the next test. They might have to do the word reading test, and then they'll have to do the nonsense words test. So yes, we do all of the parts as the gates opened up. I hope that answers your question. There's more questions. Did you have your 4th? Yes, the 4th and 5th grade teachers attended all of our trainings in the grant schools. Yes. I think
Yes, Linda,
I
the
might
SIPs
have
and Hegarty are replacing our instruction
the
carefully.
word, yeah, the word work in our core curriculum has been replaced using SIPs and Hegarty instruction instead. So the time that they would have spent doing word work in our Wonders curriculum has been replaced by using SIPs and Hegarty, because otherwise there would not have been enough time to do all of that. So that's where we found the time to do the small group instruction using SIPs and Hegarty. Hegarty was probably the easiest thing for our staffs to integrate. They picked that up the quickest, and I think they have the most love for that because it was easiest for them to pick up. And they saw, I think, the quickest results from it. I think I'm ready for my next slide. The M-Class intervention, they do have access to the M-Class intervention. There's a question in the chat if we use the M-Class intervention. The activities that are in there are available to the teachers, and sometimes they use those with their MTSS paras as ready to use activities that the teachers can print out and give to their paras to use with the small groups.
I can answer this one a little bit. We didn't purchase the M-Class intervention piece of Amplify. There's actually a whole component that we did not
Sorry.
purchase, but we do know it's okay that we did. They do, however, make available something called instruction, which is what Jessica's speaking of. So when they take the assessment, Amplify, there's like groups that are made, and then there's instructional pieces. And so that is the part. So no, we do not use that whole intervention piece. We did not purchase that. Right now, SIPs is our main phonics intervention, just to answer the other part of your question.
So for this slide, in terms of the developmental lag, there is super strong evidence that exists that tells us that the majority of at-risk students can be helped before they develop that chronic serious reading and writing delays. So we are hitting our kids hard, and we are really hoping to, break this cycle. We're catching them up, and we are seeing improvements, and we are seeing progress in our students.
So curriculum, we started out, our core curriculum is Wonders. And I don't know how familiar you are with Wonders, but Wonders pretty much covers the top of the reading rope, but it's very difficult. You really have to drill down to find any word work, any phonics instruction in there. And in fact, 2 other coaches and myself spent weeks before the grant drilling into Wonders and trying to put together kind of a scope and sequence of just the phonics instruction in Wonders. And it was a big job. And I taught 1st grade for 32 years using Wonders, so I knew it very well, and it was still, so we thought for teachers that are just brand new back to that bill that's coming into teaching and not having the training that they needed to have in teaching phonics, Wonders is not going to cut it. So district-wide, we purchased Hegarty, SIPs, and Dibbles, and we gave it all to all the teachers all at the same time. That was fun as an instructional coach.
Okay, that's not true. We did Hegarty first. in the
Oh,
spring. So they did have a few months
okay,
with Haggerty.
okay, you're right.
It was a lot though, all at once. Yeah, I agree.
It was a lot all at once. So yeah, Dibbles. Okay, so we have made SIPs basically our word work, our core for our phonics instruction, and the bottom part of the rope for kindergarten through second grade. We use it as an intervention in third through fifth grade, and the rest of for all of the grant schools. I don't know, Andrea, are the other schools using it as an intervention now yet?
Well, we use it even as intervention as appropriate in every grade that it's appropriate for when the way that we place. So we even use it, like a second grader might be using the level as
True.
appropriate, but we definitely are trying to work hard at benchmarking SIPs so that students arrive where they belong in the
Yes.
right phonics in the continuum as appropriate so that they get the instruction. That's one of the nice things about SIPs, so if they are supposed to be, where they're supposed to be, they can, start where they are and get where they need to go. But yes, a majority of our schools, I would say, what our plan is sort of a 3-year plan, and a majority of schools actually saw their needs so quickly. We planned on working on it next year, and so many schools saw we need what's a SIP stuff? We need it sooner, and we definitely could see that. Wow, they need it sooner, so they started using it a little bit before that. So grant schools were using it in upper grades, a particular level that's appropriate for called plus, and they're using it at the many of the other sites, not 100% of them, but even our middle schools we actually rolled to. I know we're not talking about middle school today, but there's a lot of need there, and so some of our middle schools began using it. Definitely tough there, but
So in answer to the question, we have an intervention teacher, a reading intervention teacher, and she also uses SIPs in her reading intervention, but she only has we do a walk to learn model. So our kids are all leveled across the grade level, and even within maybe above and below. For example, today I was in a first grade class and 2 of the kids went to a kindergarten class during that walk to learn time because that's the level they needed right now. So we might have kids, I mean, technically SIPs is beginning SIPs is kindergarten and first grade, but we do have a second grade group in intervention using the beginning because they don't know their letters and sounds, and that's where they needed to be. They were even farther behind than what extension review would have been. So now teachers have jumped on board and they love SIPs. But it took some time for them to get as comfortable with it as they are now.
We already had, as has already been said, we had instructional coaches already. Our district had already shown that they valued our teachers and our students by having instructional coaches. They have district level coaches that support the instructional coaches and support the sites. They've really supported us very clearly and shown us that they've got a lot of support for us. They provided us with Andrea, who is amazing, and she has learned everything that she can about early literacy, and she's an amazing resource for everyone on this. There's been so much extra training for all of the coaches at all of the site. We continue to get extra training, even those of us at the grant sites. We continue to get training because even though we hear it through LACO, there has been so much. And the cognitive load on us was so heavy that sometimes you need to hear it again in a different setting from a different person, and then it clicks for you. And sometimes you just need to talk about it and discuss it. And as you talk about it and you talk through it one more time, you really get more clarity on it. So having that time is just as important for us as coaches, and having that provided by the district has been very important. Having paraeducators, it just shows that our district values our students. It values us as educators too, to have that support in our classrooms, support for our students. PLC time. If we don't have time to work together as a team, then how are we going to get this work done? It's imperative that you have time to work together as a team. You have to be able to plan. You have to be able to figure out what you're teaching, how you're teaching it. You have to know what is your intention. We worked hard on learning intentions and success criteria, learning how to match that with the right, tools for teaching, the right assessments, how we're going to figure all of that out. You have to be able to look at the data. You have to be able to figure out where your students placed. Are your students learning to read? Are they making improvements? And if they're not, how do you need to change what you're doing? And if you don't have that time in a PLC, how are you going to make changes? How are the students going to succeed? And our district has really shown that they value that. Some of the challenges that we have faced, we've had some resistant teachers. We've had some teachers that were definitely feeling the stress of oh, I didn't do that right before. We've had a lot of teacher turnover. We do have a lot of staff that moves from place to place, and then you have to start over with your training. We have, teachers, people move, people retire. I don't know why they do that, because I just taught them how to do this thing and now I have to teach someone else. We've had admin moving up, getting new jobs because they're so great. I wish they would stop doing that. The capacity of your site admin who wasn't there the year before, how do they, this new admin who didn't get all the other learning, how do they now support this work? So all of that has been hard. You get some teachers who are like, well, I'm retiring next year, so I'm not even going to bother to learn this new stuff. It's just a pendulum swing. We've heard a lot of that, and it's hard to really kind of break through some of those things with teachers, and you have to really show them. You have to show them, no, wait, look at this works. And then once they finally see it work, then that's when those barriers break down. But it's hard, and you have to just push through. But there's a lot, and it takes a lot of hard work. It's worth it, but it's hard work.
So what's going well? All of our schools in the district, not just our grant schools, have implemented Heggerty, SIPs, and Dibbles. I have to say, there's a teacher at my school, and the Lancaster people and Lakehill people have heard this story, but at the beginning, especially the year that we gave them Dibbles and SIPs at the same time, she's been teaching for a very long time. She said, seriously, why, what, this is just going to be gone in another 10 years, and then something else is going to come in. But through all of the training, she's kind of come around, and I like to say she drank the Kool-Aid. And about a month, I'm getting the chills, I'm going to get choked up. About a month ago, she came to me and she said, she teaches second grade. She said, every single one of my second graders is reading. They're not all at grade level, so it's not, this isn't a miracle, but every single one is reading. And she was just so excited. And it's such a cool thing to see somebody who was so resistant in the beginning come around, and she's like the biggest fan. It's fantastic. Our MTSS para program is fantastic. The teachers and the paras work together. They go to trainings together. The paras are very well trained. They've gone to SIPS trainings. They are wonderful. And then our community engagement has been great. We do, I think, 2 events, big events a year for the district, and with local authors coming in, tons of families, food, games, all the games are centered around literacy, reading, all kinds of stuff. It's super fun. And then at my school, we have lunch on the lawn a couple times a year, and we give out books to the parents that come. So we're getting more books in the hands of kids as much as possible. And then we have fantastic data. Like Jessica said, every other week I'm meeting with grade levels and we're looking at data. We're discussing how did you teach this? Well, how did you teach this? Well, your kids did better. So what did you do? And in fact, just today we had all of the first grade teachers observing one first grade teacher. And then we all came back together and had a discussion, and there was a lot of really good stuff being talked about then. So I think the number one thing is that our district firmly believes in the science of reading and getting this into our teachers' hands and into our kids' brains. And that if we didn't have that, this would not work. So that's what's going well.
Leah, can I chime in on that? As an outsider,
Yes.
you know, I'm an outsider in the sense that I can see the aerial view of the district, even though I'm involved in your work. And I think that you're spot on. I mean, the challenges that you shared are so real. This is really hard work. And we did feel the 2 steps forward, 1 step back a lot of times. There were times when we were all like, oh my God, seriously? I mean, sometimes it's just so hard. But when I think about where you started 3 years ago, this is a complete and utter transformation of a huge urban district. And what held you together was 2 things: systems, your district admin, your district coach, you guys as coaches on the sites. That structure, if you don't have that, it's really hard to do this work without it. You are the glue. You hold it all together. And the other piece is having a shared vision for the entire district that you're slowly working towards is huge. It was a lot to take on just the grant schools, let alone at the same time taking on sharing this with all your other sites. And because you had that system in place, and with teacher turnover, and with COVID, and with the many barriers, you're still doing it because of all these systems in place. You have internal training, you have tons of resources on a website for everybody, you have all these things that you guys have created and set up for yourself. So to anyone watching, you know, to those of you that are listening to this, I think that 2 of the big takeaways from what I've heard you say so far are around: it's hard, it's messy, but keep working at it. And if you have systems and a district committed to the vision, it doesn't matter what the challenges are. The challenges can be overcome. You just got to keep at it.
And to that's what this screen is showing, Leslie, is that by the end of our first year, this is what our teachers and our paras were preaching. They were like, this is working. We need to start it sooner in the school year. And so to that, I'll let you read some of that and you can look back in the recording, but they overwhelmingly understood the need for SIPs and for Hegarty and understanding structured, explicit, systematic instruction. And so on the next slide, you'll see that we started to look at our data, and this is Dibble's data, and we're looking at the first grade composite here, and this is showing from beginning, mid, and end year. And yes, you'll see that pretty blue and green line growing, and that's what we want to see. We want to see our little baby's proficiency increasing throughout the school year. And so there's our kinder and first grade. And if you go to the next slide. And that was the composite score, by the way, that's the overall score. And here we're looking at the phonemic awareness. And again, you're gonna see our first grade increasing from beginning to mid-year. And remember, there was that learning curve on trying to understand how to give the assessment. And I would even say our teachers are still trying to understand the intricate pieces of DIBELS and what those independent assessments and skills are really mean, what they say, and connecting it, as Andrea was saying, to that progress monitoring piece that's available in the DIBELS platform as another avenue to support that instruction in small groups. And then on the next slide, you're going to see that pretty arrow showing again our second graders proficiency levels increasing in decoding. That's right, they are reading, they're knowing how to decode and read. And then as Andrea said, now we're beginning to I wouldn't say shift, but show the integration of how now there's reading comprehension that can happen. So if we lay this solid foundation, then now we can start to bridge into reading comprehension. So with all the work, as Leslie was saying, we're not done. This isn't a sprint, it's a journey. And we know we're in it for the long haul. This is the right work. And so what does it look like? Well, first of all, Some considerations, as we talked about at the very beginning of this, is new curriculum. But more importantly, it's about building the capacity of our staff so that when it's time to get new curriculum, they know what to look for. They know what is quality. We're not just adopting something because it's comfortable or familiar or tradition. We're doing it because it's the right instructional pieces for our students so they know phonics and phonemic awareness. We're also continuing to support the language comprehension and reading comprehension for our 3rd through 8th. As Andrea said, because we knew there was such a gap, we went ahead and implemented, and it was a lot of work, but we did placement tests on all of our outgoing elementary, incoming middle school students and leveled them out and provided SIPS instruction and trained those middle school teachers and paras to support in the middle school. We know there's an issue with onboarding. I saw a couple questions about onboarding, sustainability and professional development. We're working with a couple of avenues. One, we have a wonderful induction program, and they captured alongside Andrea those K2 teachers or intervention to anyone who was going to support literacy, and gave an overview. And then we provided multiple opportunities for learning those pieces. Whenever we have a new MTSS para introduced to the program, they get onboarded. We also have quarterly trainings for those teachers and paras to collaborate and build goals looking at their data. And with admin, I think it started with DigiCoach, giving them a tool so they knew what to look for, the what to look fors. But we understand there's a gap still, and we need to fill some holes with our admin so that they know explicitly what to observe and what feedback to provide, so that then they know what PD and other pieces are needed at their site. I think I hit everything else on there. Yeah. So with that, I will leave it with some more Q&A.
Let me see if there's anything else.
I was just going to say, I've been sort of trying to jump around in the Q&A. I answered a few, but just one that you were sort of getting at a little bit with admin. I definitely, she said it, Tara was saying about our admin, you know, have a lot on their plate and definitely doing a lot. But one of the things, we mentioned it at the beginning, but we started with DigiCoach, and it was mentioned, I don't know, Tara, if you want to speak to that, but I feel like there was a question getting at that, and now I can't find it.
there
Forgive
was.
me.
It was on training admin, what we did specifically. So they've been invited to all the trainings Andrea spoke to on that roadmap where we gave the pieces of the reading foundations. But I think even more so, that's one avenue of knowledge if I'm thinking from like an administrator who has to have that vision piece. The other side is, now that I have that information, how do I build in the supports or anticipate the needs of like skill for my teachers within their school plan? So I think that's the piece that we're looking at more so for next year.
Well, and I can add to that, saying that for the grant schools, we met monthly with the entire leadership team, principals, coaches, and the district folks, so that we could ensure that everybody's on the same page. We all know what we're doing, and we talk a lot about what's going right and what are you struggling with, and how do we address that. And the principals have actually come up with some really amazing solutions themselves and shared with each other. One of them started going back through all of our recordings of our teacher trainings and pulling out slices on different topics and organizing them on his YouTube channel so that teachers could go in and get refreshers on, oh, you're having trouble with syllables? Here's this, it's 10 minutes on syllables, or it's 20 minutes on, you know, whatever. And that was brilliant. And they have a whole playlist of training in the district. I mean, so handling the big training problem and the turnover of teachers and the turnover of admin, they can go back through all of our recordings of every training we've ever given. They have access to all that. And then they've also created a ton of other.
And I think also, Leslie, a big piece I just want to mention too, we did, LACO help support us with SIPS coaching. So we had a consultant come out, and they've done this with our middle schools, where we did 3 coaching cycles. And in those coaching cycles, the first coaching cycle, she demonstrated what a lesson would look like and provided feedback. But there's a wonderful reflection tool in there. And so what we did is empowered and built the capacity of our admin to use this tool to know what type of feedback to provide, explicit feedback. And then that feedback stayed with the teacher and allowed for a coaching cycle or for a conversation in a PLC to refine that practice as well.
Another, I think, good example of how you guys handled challenges was we had an entire grade level at one school who refused to participate. They said they wanted to opt out of our grant project. They were tired, they were done, they didn't want to do it. So that was a real turning point, honestly. Like, I remember sitting in that meeting and hearing that and just wanting to cry. And the district did not cry. They're like, no, you're not doing that. That we're
You
going.
called me.
Yeah. I'm like, what? So they went in, and really, when you look at what is behind resistance, resistance is about fear. Resistance about feeling of uncertainty and not being able to do it well. And so the district went in, flooded that team with resources, open the boxes, take the stuff out. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through the scope and sequence. We're going to practice together. I'm going to help you get your stuff organized. And guess which team at the end of last year was our biggest cheerleader? They actually, this was not even that long after. This was mid-year last year when we were in the throes of implementing all this new curriculum, and it was a lot. But you know, when you're in a grant, you're spending money and you got to show results. So it was like, chop, chop, we don't have time to sit around and feel sorry for ourselves. We got to do it. So this one team, after having all that support from this was literally 2 meetings later, 2 months later, we asked a question of the whole, we meet with everybody in the grant schools monthly. So there's 120 teachers on this call. And Mara and I say, hey, anybody want to share anything that's going on? How are you guys feeling about things? The lead for that team unmuted, not just typed in the chat, unmuted and said, we want to say that we were resistant and we're the ones, because they knew they were being talked about. We're the ones who would not do it. And we want to say that we absolutely love this program. Our kids have made more progress in the last 2 months than they've made in 2 years. And we're fully on board. And we feel dumb that they felt really bad about it. But you know what? That, to me, that was such a pivotal moment for the entire group to hear. Like, we needed to hear that. Everybody needed to hear that it's okay to feel bad and scared and uncertain and not want to do things. But that doesn't mean that you sit there and do nothing. Like, this district said, no, that you're not going to do that. We're going to flood you with support. Instead of a hammer, it was, let me encircle you with support. And that's what they did. And I think if you take anything away from the journey of Lancaster, it's partly that. Like, fear and resistance are just things that you can tackle.
Coaching is a big part of what we do. I feel like we're led by Krista, who is an amazing coach herself, by the way. Just she hasn't talked a whole lot tonight, but I just have to give her props as a great leader of all of us and has trained us to be great coaches. And I've been a coach under her for a long time, but coaching is a big part of what we do. We were called out to lots of schools to have those conversations with small teams. I can't even tell you how many. The first ones were such scary conversations for me, but then they became easier, but they were just about that. The resistance usually is just about concern, fears, questions. We'd answer them. And maybe we had to go back a few times, but it was definitely always to just open a box or talk about a thing, and sometimes it brought questions to us that we were like, oh, what is the answer to that? Which was a good thing for us because it got us questions answered.
Well, and sometimes Mara and I don't know the answer either. I mean, we're learning too. We don't know. And you have to, I think, as in doing this work with your staff, you have to be able to say, we don't know. Well, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll look, but I don't know. We don't have all the answers in this either.
Funny enough, there's a few in the chat that I could say, I actually think we've thought about a few of those and we actually don't quite know the answer to a few of those, funny enough. That, or we're like, we thought of them and, we're still thinking on them.
I do want to address the one about the Texas A&M meta-analysis on phonemic awareness. Because
talked about that one a lot today.
I read through that, and I think anytime you try to prescribe a time, it's 10 hours, it's 6 hours, it's 4 hours, it's 20 minutes, it's 2 minutes. It depends on who's sitting in front of you. It depends on what their diagnostic says. So while, people are getting very riled up about that meta-analysis, but in my mind, we follow the philosophy of structured literacy. We diagnose and then we treat. And that's the underlying foundation of all of this. Look at who's sitting in front of you. Do they need 10 hours? I don't know. Maybe they need 20 hours if they're a kid who's this is their area that they really struggle in. So that article to me was just more of a cautionary tale around when we prescribe time limits on, we need to be careful about that, because this program, structured literacy, is about meeting individual needs of individual kids. It's not about be on page 6, spend 20 minutes on this. That isn't how it works. And so I think that's the lesson that I took from it.
Well, and the truth is,
Leslie?
phonemic awareness isn't supposed to be a ton of time either.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anyways, yeah.
Before we close out, I know that there are subgroups of kids that some of the questions are interested in. Krista, can you talk about how the special ed department participated and what was done for resource students and special ed? And then if there's any time, we'll also talk about multilingual learners and emergent
Well,
bilinguals.
it's 7:31, so she gets 1
I
minute.
know she's.
And then we're, I'm the timekeeper. I shut it down because they're tired and I don't want to make them talk a long time. So
Okay.
do that one
I can
question
do this-
about special
I can do
population.
this really fast. Our special ed students are general ed students first. So we didn't treat them any differently. They all have the same assessments, the same treatment in terms of what we're providing in early literacy. So for students, we went to inclusion this year, which was another huge challenge as well. So that folded in a whole other challenge in a lot of our schools, but they are gen ed students first, and so they were not left out of training. The teachers were not left out of training. They were included in the work that we were doing with our learning centers, our walk to learn intervention, and the core instruction. Same for EL. For our multilingual learners, and I will tell you, we still have work to do with multilingual learners and the dyslexia piece. It's part of what we're doing. It's a priority focus, but we have some work to do in shoring up our treatment for those students as well.
But I will tell you that Claude Goldenberg, who's huge reading researcher, EL advocate, we call him Uncle Claude. He's one of us now. He lives with us on this project, and he has been consulting with us around the English learner issue. And he just gave a professional learning session to the teachers, I think it was 2 sessions ago, on multilingual learners and considerations for them. So it is top of mind in terms of serving the needs of all students, but I'm really proud of this district for taking the look, for treating all students as students first. Like, your label is this or that, but let's look at what your need is. Let's look at what your individual issue is, and let's work on treating that. Okay, so it is 3 minutes over, and yes, I want to just share my screen really quick to give you the link to the next event that we have. Lancaster, you guys, you know how much we love you. You're so amazing. Thank you for taking your time and being here tonight. We're not done. We have this work to do for years. We're not done with Lancaster. The grant ends for us at the end of September, but we will always be with them. They will always be our family because that's just how it is. Okay, so I want to show you just this last little slide so that you can see our next event. So we got Todd Collins, folks, coming on March 27th. And if you don't know Todd, he's the founder and head honcho of the California Reading Coalition. He is a data guru, but he makes it so palatable and so wonderful. And he's going to give us an update on what is the data landscape saying in California, which will be so good. So make sure that you sign up for that. Thanks, Kristen, for putting that in the chat for them. So thank you guys all for being here. Lancaster, thank you again. So appreciate you being willing to tell your story. And everybody have a fabulous night. Take care out there.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, y'all.